This is the moment everything cracked open. Not with the scandal caught on camera, not with the screaming headline, but with silence, 44 photos, one glittering Hollywood night, and a duchess who somehow existed in the same space as the biggest names in the industry, yet stood alone like she wasn't supposed to be there at all. Because when the cameras are rolling and the flashbulbs are popping, Hollywood doesn't lie, it exposes. And what it exposed that night? It wasn't a fashion moment. It wasn't a power couple appearance. It was something colder, something deliberate, something that felt like a quiet message being sent without a single word spoken.
The funniest thing about Meghan Markle's deranged display in Montecito over the weekend with Ted Sarandos, the Netflix boss, is that she hasn't realized yet. You're the one being played, Meghan.
Your business partnership is collapsing. Your cooking show was canceled. Your brand lost its backer. And your place to show up at the man's house, grab his wife's hand and pose for Getty images like everything is fine? That takes a very specific kind of audacity, and nobody does audacity like Meghan.
They made sure that Carrie Mulligan did not come in until Meghan Markle had left. And she didn't want to leave. She was making everybody's life a misery because she wanted to be present because she's the Duchess. But no, honey, you have lost big time. That's how much Meghan Markle's stock has fallen. She was kicked out and Harry was embarrassed and apologizing to Ted Sarandos once again for his wife's lack of sensitivity or listening to people or following a simple dress code.
She is very, very worried, nervous. She's on the back foot. She knows Netflix is gone. She knows Netflix is moving on, and she's sort of freaking out about it. They know the gravy train is ending, and they're just doing anything as humanly possible to gain attention.
And that's where the mystery begins to tighten, because 44 official photos don't just happen. They are curated, selected, approved, released. Every frame is a decision. Every pairing is a signal. And yet, in all those carefully documented moments, Meghan Markle appears in individual pairings with exactly two people. Not the legends, not the Oscar nominees, not even the actual star of the night, just the Netflix CEO and his wife. Pause there. Think about that. In a garden filled with industry giants, why does the photographic evidence look like she was orbiting the host and no one else?
Well, Brittany, none of this was a good look. None of this was a good look. She looks truly deranged. We know what she's trying to do here. The problem is, Brittany, it changes nothing. The fact that Ted Sarandos wants her to try and promote.
The setting was flawless. The guest list, almost unreal. Names that carried decades of power, influence, prestige. And yet, the story that quietly slipped through the cracks wasn't about who was there, it was about who wasn't standing next to her. Because in Hollywood, proximity is currency. Who you stand beside matters more than what you wear. And when the official record shows absence, not once, not twice, but consistently, it stops being coincidence. It starts looking like avoidance.
I mean, she doesn't care about her reputation, does she? Or does she think that the Duchess of Sussex title can take on anything and nothing's going to happen to it? That title, it's already devalued, depreciated, and valued completely. How embarrassing. And no, Meghan Markle doesn't have a model body.
And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because this isn't about missing one photo. This is about a pattern across an entire curated drop. A photographer of that level doesn't miss moments. She captures everything that matters, which raises a brutal question. If those moments didn't make it into the official record, is it because they didn't happen or because someone made sure they didn't exist publicly? Either answer is explosive.
It is gross, and trust me, I know how fake Hollywood is. I know how fake the entertainment industry is. But Meghan Markle and the Sussex Squad think this is a win for her. Think that this in some way disproves everything that has gone on with Netflix. It doesn't. All she looks is nuts. Totally crazy. Clinging on to Ted Sarandos' wife for dear life.
Look closer. Strip away the headlines. Ignore the dress. Focus on the empty spaces, the invisible gaps between her and everyone else. The images show her at the edge, with the hosts, in a group. And then, nothing. No laughter frozen beside A-listers. No candid closeness. No organic mingling captured. Just a presence that feels contained. controlled, almost like she was there but not fully part of it. And that guest list, it reads like a Hollywood power index. People who know exactly how these events work. People who understand visibility, optics, alignment. They were in the same space, breathing the same air, sharing the same conversations, and yet not one of them appears in an individual frame with her. Not one. That's not random. That's not oversight. That's a signal. A quiet, unmistakable signal. Now here's the twist that turns this from awkward to something much bigger. Because the one image that did circulate, the one moment that was supposed to anchor the narrative, didn't land the way it was intended. The hug, the connection, the visual proof of belonging. It didn't feel natural. It didn't feel central. It felt forced. And when even the most sympathetic analysis starts using words like exaggerated and photobombing, the narrative begins to slip out of control. Because that word, photobombing, doesn't just describe a pose. It reframes the entire presence. It suggests intrusion instead of inclusion. And suddenly, everything starts to click into place. The absence of pairings, the controlled proximity, the single highlighted interaction that didn't quite land. It paints a picture that no headline dared to fully spell out. Not someone dominating the room, but someone trying to stay relevant inside it. Not someone being upstaged, but someone quietly left on the sidelines while the real connections unfolded elsewhere. And here's the part no one wants to say out loud because it cuts deeper than any headline ever could. This wasn't about fashion. This wasn't about timing. This wasn't even about one night. This was about positioning, about where she stands now in a room that once might have opened differently. Because when the only consistent faces beside you are the hosts, it doesn't look like influence. It looks like containment. And when the rest of the room exists around you but never with you, that silence becomes deafening. The kind of silence that doesn't just end a night, it starts a question that refuses to go away. What really happened in that garden? And more importantly, what didn't? And just when you think the silence couldn't get louder, the timeline steps in and makes everything even more uncomfortable. Because that night didn't happen in isolation, it landed like a carefully staged move right in the middle of a storm that had already started swallowing everything around it. 24 days earlier, a bombshell report dropped, not whispers, not rumors, but sourced, structured, and sitting in plain sight, describing a relationship that wasn't just strained, it was collapsing from the inside. 6 insiders, 1 message. We're done. Not speculation, not interpretation. A statement that doesn't need exaggeration because of how brutally simple it is. And suddenly that garden party stops looking like a celebration and starts looking like something else entirely. A test, a last attempt, a controlled environment where one image could rewrite a narrative that was already slipping beyond control. Because think about it, if everything was fine, if the partnerships were strong, if the doors were still wide open, why would one single hug become the centerpiece of the entire night? Why would that one moment be pushed, circulated, repeated like it was proof of something bigger? It only happens when that image is carrying more weight than it should. When it's not just a photo, it's evidence. Evidence that says we're still connected, we still belong, this relationship still exists. But the problem with evidence is it only works if it holds up under pressure. And the second people started analyzing that image, reading into it, questioning it, it stopped looking like proof and started looking like performance. And that's where the contradictions begin stacking on top of each other like pieces of a puzzle that don't quite fit. Because on one side, you have the optics, the dress, the entrance, the carefully timed appearance. And on the other side, you have the data, the numbers, the rankings. The kind of information that doesn't care about appearances or narratives. A show sitting at 383rd, then dropping to 1,217th. Not fading, not declining, disappearing. And that's not the kind of performance you recover from with a single photo op. That's the kind of trajectory that forces decisions behind closed doors. Decisions that don't get announced immediately but start showing up in subtle ways, like who stands next to you and who doesn't. Because here's the thing nobody wants to admit. Hollywood doesn't reject loudly. It doesn't slam doors. It adjusts. It shifts. It creates distance so gradually that by the time you notice it, it's already complete. And that's exactly what those 44 photos feel like. Not an accident, not a coincidence, but a visual representation of distance being maintained with precision. Enough politeness to avoid headlines. Enough separation to send a message. And then there's the detail that quietly makes everything even heavier. The timing of everything else happening around that night. A lawsuit surfacing surfacing the same day. Business decisions being finalized just days before. Partnerships quietly dissolving while public appearances are still being made. Two realities running parallel. One public, one private, and that event sitting right in the middle like a collision point. And suddenly, the question isn't just what happened at that party. It's what was that party trying to cover? Because when a brand starts to fracture, the first instinct isn't to disappear, it's to be seen more, to show up, to remind people you're still in the room. But what happens when you show up and the room doesn't respond the way it used to? What happens when visibility is no longer enough? That's when things start to feel forced. That's when moments start to look staged instead of natural. That's when even the smallest details, a hand placement, a body angle, a missing photo, start to feel like clues instead of coincidences. And the deeper you go, the harder it becomes to ignore the pattern forming right in front of you. Because it's not just about one event. It's not just about one set of photos. It's about consistency. The same names appearing, the same absence repeating, the same attempts to create moments that don't quite land the way they're supposed to. And when patterns repeat in a space as controlled as this, they stop being random. They become intentional, which brings us back to the most uncomfortable realization of all. The idea that maybe nothing dramatic had to happen that night for the message to be clear. No confrontation, no scene, no headline-worthy moment, just space, just distance, just a room full of people making quiet decisions about where they stand and who they stand with. Because sometimes exclusion doesn't look like rejection. Sometimes it looks like politeness stretched just far enough to keep everything calm on the surface while something much colder is happening underneath. And that's why those 44 photos matter more than anything anyone said. Because words can be managed, statements can be spun, but images, especially curated ones, they reveal patterns that are much harder to control. And when every frame points in the same direction, when every absence tells the same story, when every connection looks carefully limited, it stops being a coincidence. It becomes a narrative that doesn't need to be spoken out loud. So now the question shifts again. Not was she ignored, not was she excluded, but something far more unsettling. Was this the moment the industry quietly moved on while letting her think she was still part of it? Because that's the kind of ending that doesn't explode. It fades, it stretches, it lingers just enough to make you question everything you thought you saw. And if that's true, then that night wasn't just another appearance. It wasn't just another headline. It was a signal, a turning point, a moment where the illusion held just long enough to look real before the cracks started showing through. And the most dangerous part, if you missed it the first time, if you focused on the dress, the headlines, the surface level noise, you would never see it. Because the real story wasn't in what was shown. It was in what was missing. And once you see that, you can't unsee it.